down for much too long. Stand up, please, and say I am free. Don't forget you are welcome home, welcome home. Come with me on this happy trip back to the promised land. All will be happy and gay. Come with me on this happy trip back to the promised land. All will be happy and gay. You've been gone, it's an empty home. Come on back where you really belong. You are always welcome home, welcome home. Come with me on this happy trip back to the promised land. All will be happy and come with me on this happy trip back to the promised land. All will be happy and gay. Welcome home. Welcome home. Welcome home. Welcome home.
Ghana free na lusu flanda omla dem so wo na wasi oni mo fa na aye bida aye bafo oyo obi oyo pesa ka keku sikanga ni sika ya fe na ntantama na oye Ghana eyiwani John John onmei sasa abansime gbe fa hotentesi aboto ojina sodo sasa abansime gbe fa hotentesi aboto ojina sodo John onmei sale fajawu na kasa
family na ena ebumasia eye nyamede ma omo enti ebi mo ho a ede o no for secondary school a obeya no epie onya hwe enfim enso eba ne sa no ejuma eti mu de abofra no omo ne omoden enti ese okay ene ne eben de district bia ye be technical vocational training center enti enpadana want to me enye emomode was secondary no one be technical vocational training na nea ɔbɛda osue biara sɛ ɛyɛ hairdressing o adepam o fitani o electrician plumber tiler carpenter nea ɔpɛ biara.
Mistakes are a for binum ye ayozibi nsinu nina so ofi ibnaze ofi kasa na akwati ti aban okan dede daw yes obey presenter obama afofo Frabia, one fisherman, one canoe, one net, one albomoto, one sea, one fish. It's a man for free now, Kizinechi. I'm there. 2017, Ghana for Domina, you win the Ampa, where's the Enhamo? Me ask my there, Obi to human, me ye dead the way samba wa me.
Once upon a time, there was a man. His name was Professor John Evans Atamils. Sir, a pede esu ejuma. I was there in your master. Na master autonomy not sure there, so that you also can become a master like him. Enti nyame echemade minya master. Ami ye na bedechi. Na somje na hobrase na ejumade eni na misuen
abale de mama what you down precause
secondary school one see ayasabia one see akwan wonyi kania onchen ko bibia enso wontui won see habo wonya hwe eze enye formo or your second term for Mahama, 2 terms for Mahama.
MPP no mo tell you make MPP ma be MPP there what do you know more it's better with man ma be MPP
Peja Chebi Bonso Kwai contractor na wie ne fefe the same cocoa roads ezu enso asemfo su twefo pra so kwai cocoa ayeti free high a me hwe se minia Kennedy efie e wo sa kwai no so ezu Sami no Kennedy the way I OCD accountable ewo MPP party mu na mehwe kwan a efi ha ekotwe popra so and if you fefe ewo sa kwan no so mehwe aho
Okui Dramani Mahama Kucha Mansa Odamina ma wonyi nende wonyi nochna no yinde bia asembeba asam aba inti na Ghana man here ubio
a peaceful country and a beacon of democracy in its fourth republic, has had violent free elections and transitioned power peacefully without any unrest or civil strife. This has become effortlessly possible because of the peace-loving leaders Ghanaians have successfully elected to lead them. President Kufuor in 2007 perfectly described the attribute of the type of person to lead Ghanaians at all times.
So anybody who is always full of tension and fighting and that sort of thing, we have to be careful about. Whether when the power is given to this person to lead us, he's the type with the experience and with all due respect the wisdom to be able to keep the country united, to secure the nation, to gain the respect of the forces, the military, the police, the chiefs. Look out for that, because we know the history. Some people have been given power only to lose it just like that. We don't want that.
Even so, this peaceful and beautiful country was handed to Nana Akufo-Addo on the 7th January 2017 as president to lead for 4 years. Many people had reservations about his violent nature, which may have been well hidden from the public, but not from those who knew him best. Mr. Kofi Kumsen, a close friend of President Nana Addo, bluntly stated,
I can't entrust Ghana into the hands of Nana Akufo-Addo. I can't sleep. It's not safe. It's not safe. And I believe that.
Then there's Maxwell Kofi-Juma. President Nana Addo's violent nature became immediately apparent as a warlord sponsoring his party hoodlums to attack innocent citizens and public officers alike, as was seen with the beating of ASP Nanka Bruce at the presidency in front of a paralyzed security on the 9th January 2017, just 2 days after Nana Addo had been sworn in as president. President Nana Addo surrounded himself with hoodlums as bodyguards and endorsed vigilante groups such as Invincible Force and Delta Force. Members of these vigilante groups had free rein to attack anyone who was not a member of the president's political party. They went on a rampage, causing mayhem and atrocities on anyone who disagreed with or criticized Nana Addo's government. President Nana Addo's own appointee, the Ashanti Regional Security Coordinator, was heckled, manhandled, and dragged from out of his office like a rat. Not even our courts were spared by these hoodlums. They vandalized court proceedings and broke free fellow members from judicial justice while attacking the sitting judge in the process. The Ayawaso West Wagon by-election was President Nana Addo's first test of leadership for peaceful elections in the country. Instead, a battalion of his party hoodlums, dressed in SWAT uniforms and armed with lethal weapons, were discharged to visit mayhem and brutalities on innocent citizens who were simply exercising their constitutional right to vote. The aim of these hoodlums was primarily to intimidate voters in the opponent's stronghold and to prevent a free and fair elections. They fired several rounds of gunshots in and around a polling center targeted at Ghanaians, which led to a bloodbath just for a by-election. All this happened under the explicit and tacit approval of President Nana Addo. These barbarisms happened without a single condemnation from the president. He immediately flew out of the country to attend a concert, leaving bloodied victims to their fate. He gleefully ignored the recommendations of the Ayawaso West Wagon Commission of Inquiry report by issuing a white paper to whitewash these crimes against Ghanaians. Otumfuo Osei Tutu II advised sternly, and I quote, "Elections with integrity mean the electoral contest, both in their preparation and their conduct, must be free and fair and not disfigured by political motivated violence. They must take place on a level playing field with parties and candidates able to campaign to put their case across and the electorate free to cast their votes without fear or intimidation." President Nana Addo sat in front of the Asantehene Otumfuo Osei Tutu II and jokingly lamented without any apology or remorse, saying in part, "I will not ignore such issues. The law applies to everyone in Ghana. I know it is of concern to you, but do not worry. We will ensure that everything is resolved." My fellow Ghanaians, has this been resolved? Have things been resolved as the president promised Otumfuo? Has Nana Addo disbanded these vigilante groups? Did we not in fact see these hoodlums on rampage again in Ketu South, Banda, and elsewhere in the just ended new voter compilation exercise? What President Nana Addo did instead was to rather embolden these hoodlums. He created a climate for hooliganism and an atmosphere of insecurity that ensured contract killings like Ahmed Suwale, kidnappings like the 3 Takoradi girls, the Canadian tourists, and the mistrust of the security agencies by infiltrating their ranks with these hoodlums. According to a leading member of the MPP, Ayawaso West Wagon was a dress rehearsal for the 2020 general elections. In fact, a May 12, 2019 letter authored by Samia Wuku, the national organizer of the MPP, on their letterhead entitled Training of Special Task Force for 2020 Elections, clearly stated the agenda to train party militia purposely for election 2020. The letter was addressed to the National Security Minister, Albert Kandapa, and copied to the Interior, Defense, and the Minister of State in charge of national security. It has become necessary going into the 2020 elections to put in place as a party in power a special security task force unit aside the state security. Fellow Ghanaians, what will be our fate in the upcoming December 7th elections? Can we trust President Nana Addo to keep this country peaceful and together? Will there be a free and fair elections devoid of any gunshots and intimidation?
The year 2020 is an election year, and the eyes of the world will continue to be fixed on us as we go to the polls. We need to meet the highest standards set by previous electoral commissions and even better it. I do not say it lightly when I say that the 2020 election will be a pivotal event for our country. It is one that will determine the destiny of our nation. And I believe at this critical stage in our nation's life that Ghanaians deserve more than ever a government that is honest and truthful with them. A government that takes responsibility and gives them results, not excuses or blame. As we go to the polls in 2020, President Akufo-Addo has a responsibility to secure the safety of all citizens and must resist the temptation to allow the use of violence to harm and intimidate innocent civilians, as we observed last year during the Awaso West Wogon by-election. On my part, I'll continue to work for peace, and I urge the President to do the same.
Good morning. Friday already, time of President Dramani Mahama's tour of the Western region. Mr. Mahama entered the region from the Central region via Upper Denchira and starting from Amenfi Central constituency. The National Democratic Congress, NDC, has described the reaction of the people and their responses as phenomenal. High expectations, complaints by traditional leaders about abandoned road projects and the failure to commence new ones, an agitated youth and hardship. This morning, we are coming to you as we have always done with a wrap-up interview with His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, presidential candidate of the NDC. My name is Eric Ahianyo from TVXYZ, and we are live from Hillcrest Hotel in Takrady. You are also watching us on Agri-TV, CTV, Volta One TV, and our new partners, TV Africa. We are also live on radio, Power FM, an affiliate of TVXYZ, Accra FM, Class FM, and this production is powered by Wizard TV. President Mahama is already seated and will join us after this break.
Every human body mass should have at least 60% water for optimal performance in any physical or mental exercise. We can help you maintain it naturally. Natural mineral water. Simply natural.
Thanks for staying with us. This is TV XYZ. Our conversation this morning with His Excellency John Dramani Mahama is powered by Wizard TV. It's also live on Agro TV, Volta One TV, CTV, TV Africa, Power FM, an affiliate of TV XYZ, Accra FM, Class FM, also in Accra. We're also live on Facebook, Periscope, on Twitter, and YouTube via Wizard TV and the official John Mahama social media handles. Your Excellency, it's a privilege, as always, to have a conversation with you. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Eric. Good to see you again.
We've been following you around, and it's been a long tour. You started from the Central region. What is really energizing you?
Well, you wake up in the morning, you say your prayer to God for giving you another day, and you pray to Him to give you the energy to be able to continue. And you go under the shower and it washes all the tiredness away, and we are up to a fresh, bright new day. But certainly the motivation is what one can do to help the people. When you go on these tours, and especially with the kind of tour we're doing, we're going right down to the communities, and you're beginning to identify what the real issues are. You go, they have a clinic, the population has increased, they need a polyclinic or a bigger clinic. You go, they don't have a school, they have to travel, to attend school and all that. You go, they probably don't have clean drinking water, or you've provided them with water, but the population has expanded, so the water is not enough. They need an expanded water system. So, just see the issues, day-to-day issues. But most of all, you see the frustration with unemployment, youth unemployment. We've always touted it as an advantage for Africa and said that Africa has a young viral population, which is an advantage in terms of a good labor force. But the downside of it is that when you have millions of young people and you're not throwing up enough jobs, then the devil finds work for idle hands. They're sitting there, they're doing nothing, and deviancy begins to creep in. And so we have a state of emergency with youth unemployment we need to work on.
I've seen them, and I'm sure the videos will be playing at the background for people to appreciate the numbers which always come around, or we see when we are on the round. And there are times when you feel, or you have that feeling that you are so agitated, sometimes the struggle is detail around you. How do you feel from the podium, or when you sit and you observe these things going on?
I observe everything that is happening, and I look at the young people, I look into their faces, and you can see the frustration, but you can also see the commitment that they want to work to change their circumstances, and they're crying for help from our leadership, that somebody will pay attention to them. It's not all the platitudes and tokenism that work. The thing is, you can do NAPCO, you can do youth employment and all those things, but they don't touch the very essence of decent jobs. You bring them in, you pay them a token, you keep them in for 2 years, 3 years, and the thing is, the skills upscaling is not really taking place in the period that you have them in that program. And so they leave without the basic skills that they can go into the world of work. I've said several times that our world is changing. The kind of grammar school education we had, no longer guarantees you employment. You come out, you can speak good English, you write very well. Before, when we were in school, UAC will come and employ you in advance, take you to the training school as a management trainee, and you finish the management training course, and then you become a middle level officer in UAC, and you graduate and build a career in UAC. Now that is not the case. You finish school, you go do national service, and then you have to get some tough shoes and get your CV and walk from place to place looking for a job, and most of the time you hardly can find one. And so there's a shift because the world's economy is changing, and skills are what are doing it for countries that are prepared for it. If you go to Germany, for instance, those that are driving the German economy are the small and medium enterprises, the plumbers, the carpenters, the masons, and so on and so forth, the technicians, the engineers, and all that. They're the ones driving not the typical white collar job. Those are the ones driving the economy. If you go to England, those driving the English economy are the shopkeepers. There's a lot of commerce. England is a commercial and financial center. And so all those little shops, doing all kinds of things, and the tourism and all that is what is driving the English economy. In our case, we can't continue producing what we call in tree cracking. Cracking. The desk jobs are no longer there. The number of people leaving secondary school and university and things and looking for desk jobs are so many that they are not enough to fill. And so we must see how we can pivot and give our young people new skills where they can enter the world of work with, or set up their own little enterprises that will also help drive our economy. Those are some of the things that I think about when I go on the field and I'm looking at all those young people, at the rallies and all that. That is what my mind is agitated about.
It's exciting to hear the orientation behind the new strategy you want to adopt to create jobs for the youth especially. It is imagined that the growing agitation, especially among the youth, is a result of the lack of some of these things we are obviously talking about. But you have a $1 million, so $1 million agenda to create these opportunities for the youth. How are you really going to implement that?
It's called the 1 million jobs plan. Part of it will be public sector, but the bulk of it is going to be private sector. The part that is public sector is we've done a human resource gap analysis, and we realized the gap in terms of adequacy of human resource in the public sector. How many more teachers do we need? How many more nurses do we need? You know, how many more security services do we need? How many more, you know, different skills do we need in the public sector? You know, and we estimate that over the next 4 years, we have a shortfall, a gap of about 50,000, you know, people in the public sector a year. And so over the next 4 years, we can raise the public sector to about 900,000. Currently, it's about 700,000, and so 50,000 a year. You know, but we must prioritize. You need lecturers for university education. You need teachers. You need nurses. You need more police officers. You need more soldiers, you know, because of the security and safety. So we must prioritize where we're going to hire those people.
So that is for the formal sector. But we have traders, fishermen, fishmongers.
Yeah, so I'll just give you an example. That should be able to create about 200,000 jobs. Now, we said a million jobs over the next 4 years. There are many other sectors where the private sector will have to come in and do it. But we need to stimulate the private sector to be able to do it. And so, for instance, in the small and medium enterprise sector, we're giving a stimulus of a tax exemption. And so we're relieving them of income taxes. And so small businesses that have a turnover of less than 200,000 Ghana cedis will not have to pay income tax, so that they can plow back their profits to expand their businesses. And we believe that it should amount to about 1.4 billion cedis a year. And so an injection of 1.4 billion cedis a year in the small enterprises is a stimulus that can help them to expand. So instead of government taking that money from them, we're leaving it to them, and then they would use it to expand their capital and all that. Because one of the major problems that we have in Ghana is access to credit. I mean, if you get credit, you get it at a very high interest rate. And so if over 4 years you do not take income tax from them, what they have to pay, where GRA comes and locks up their businesses with padlocks because they haven't paid maybe 20,000 Ghana cedis or 30,000 Ghana cedis. That money, if he put it in, he could take more stock. And so government is leaving that to them. And we believe that in that there will be job creation.
There's always the fear, sorry to cut in, that the expectation of the capital injection may not really reflect if there is no proper policing or monitoring mechanism to ensure that what the savings they are making in terms of the taxes that you are going to waive to create space for them will not really be plowed back to get the expected result.
Of course, we don't expect that it will all be plowed back equally. I mean, somebody will take that extra money and decide to buy some luxury item for himself. But the bulk of people are looking for credit and looking for more capital to inject in their businesses. And so I believe that the majority will re-inject that money into their businesses. And if they do that, then that should expand the small sector so that it can employ more people. But the other sectors we're looking at the agro-processing sector. What we've done is we've mapped out this country in terms of what we call crop processing zones. And this country has a fantastic potential. The mistake we've done in agriculture over the years is that we've concentrated on the production side, how we can stimulate farmers to produce more, without concentrating on the final end, which is the value addition end. And so we have not given the kind of credit that is needed for agro-processing and value addition in the agricultural sector. And that is what we're going to change. Part of the big push will be applied to agro-processing. Yesterday, I went to Edubamso, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later. And this is a plant that was established in 1976. They have some 6,000 hectares of palm plantation. And they harvest the palm, plantation, they have a factory on site that extracts the palm oil. And so and they sell the palm oil to the industries. Now, do you know that with all that palm oil we produce in Ghana, we do not have enough, and so they told me that if you take all that they produce, there's a shortfall, and so every year we import 463,000 metric tons of palm oil into Ghana. Meanwhile, the palm seedlings were taken from here to Malaysia, and now we import palm oil from Malaysia. We can have more of a Dubam sauce. No, benzo oil palm.
It's benzo oil palm
Bob
plantation.
Yes. Bob. We went to Bob. We can have more of Bob, you know, to be able to increase the production of palm oil. And that is the palm processing zone. There are lands that are good for palm production. You go to Bono East, you are with us in Bono East. I mean, cashew is everywhere. As you drive along the road, left, right, there's cashew everywhere. You go to another side of Ghana, and they're into pepper growing. Part of Bono, when I went, most of them grow pepper. And you can process pepper into different spices, pepper powder, and all that for exports and for the local market. You go to places, and it's all tomato. You go to places, and it's all ginger.
In the central region, for example, it was most oranges.
Yeah, we went to Asebo, where the citrus zone is. And yet we have a citrus factory that was built in Nkrumah's time that is struggling. You know, that's why we set up the Ghana Exim, so that the Ghana Exim could finance projects like that and expand their capacity. Because once you do, you have the workers who work in the factory. And aside from that, all the farmers who farm around there have a ready market for their produce. And so you are creating direct jobs and indirect jobs because you buy the products of the farmers. You know that one of the things I learned was the chief told me that people come from Cote d'Ivoire and buy their oranges and take it to Cote d'Ivoire for processing, because they have the processing capacity there, but they don't have enough oranges to feed their processing capacity. So we have the crop processing zone ideas, which will throw up hundreds of thousands of jobs. And then for the investment in social and economic infrastructure, we need civil engineers, we need mechanical engineers, we need artisans, we need crane operators, we need all kinds of people. Because like we're saying, if we're investing 2 billion in the social and economic infrastructure sector, then it means that you're going to be building hospitals, you're going to be building schools, you're going to be dualizing our roads, improving our road network and all that. And so all the labor associated with these sectors would gain employment. But how do we get that labor? It is by skills upscaling of our young people. If you go to any community today and you say, I need 10 excavator operators, you're likely not to find them. And when some of the communities, when I went, I asked, is there any excavator operator here? And not even one person put up his hands. You know, are there welders here? You know, and so young people come out of school and they are not prepared for the world of work because they have no skills to go into the world of work. Before, employers will take them and train them. Now, no employer wants to train anybody. He wants you already trained and skilled before he takes you, because I don't have time to waste spending another 6 months sending you to training. The best they'll do is to put you on the job training, and then you acquire the skills as you continue to work. But those are few and far between.
Now, when you were at Benso, some of us were curious because we said you are on a campaign tour, so why would you spend time at one of such facilities? The understanding I have is that you really wanted to understand where they are now and then perhaps tap their experiences and also give them some assurance. We have the video of your visit to Benso, and so I want us to just go briefly to watch that video as we have a conversation on the aspects of job creation that you are addressing. Yeah. But while the video will be rolling, and then when we get to the interaction, we listen to that conversation, I want to stay a little more on TVET. And I'm told that the video is on the screen. So what we see now is your visit to Ben. So those are many of the workers who welcomed you and your entourage. But I was making specific reference to the agri-processing zones. How are you going to tap Benso's experience in the areas that you have identified so far?
Eric, can you imagine that Benso was established in 1976? You know, sometimes, I don't know how to put it. Head of State, Kutua Champon, is not giving credit for some of the things he did. I mean, you go to some places and you see some of the things that were done in the early 70s, and you can see that, I mean, they were visionary. Of course, it was a military government. Later, they got involved in all kinds of things. But you see the low-cost housing, you see all kinds of things all over the country. And you imagine that, but in 1976, they were able to do this. Why are we not able to do this in our time? Benso was established in 1976. And there are several of these palm.
And our wish is that there will be more of such plantations in this country. 1,700 employees. It cuts across. You have a medical doctor, and
sorry to cut in. You go back to Benso, but I just want our viewers to listen to, I think I'm told the estate manager who engaged you when you briefed you. So let's listen to him briefly, and then I'll come back to you to expatiate on how you want to tap into Benso's experience.
Who have basic education. It tells you the transformation this kind of industry can bring here. We have a medical facility here which serves the community and also the people, the employees here. We also have a school up to JHS level. So this, we believe, is a model that can be replicated across the country to fight against this unemployment and bring social equity amongst all of us. For the school here, all our children attend it, and it doesn't matter whether you are a manager or a worker, you are entitled to the same level of education, and once you are serious, you can make it in life. This is the kind of model we want to sell out, so that people in authority can replicate it across the country to help increase employment for our youth. It is a model that is workable, it is sustainable. They are also certified plantation, meaning our oil palm can sell worldwide, anywhere, and it is acceptable. That's the roundtable on sustainable palm oil. So this is the model we are trying to sell across and push.
The projects they funded, how are those projects doing and all that. But we had EDIF, and we converted it to Ghana Exim so that it will have a better focus and it will have a better, investment plan. And so if we get private investors who are willing to be able to go into this, a public-private partnership, and that's how most of these organizations started, will be able to establish, essays like this. I don't believe that government in itself can set up something like this and manage it properly. You would have all kinds of issues. But once the private sector comes in, and the private sector is in control, it's able to manage these things. And as he said we can replicate Benso. Benso was done in 1976. All the oil palm plantations we have and processing plants were established at that time. Since then, we've not established any new ones. There's land that is lying idle in that whole area. Government needs to come in because the private sector cannot handle the issues of compensation for the land. Mm-hmm. But government can come in. There's a law that allows government to acquire land and then compensate the people. And that is how government can use its muscle to replicate some of what is in Benso. Benso has 1,700 employees. So imagine 1,700 employees from the area, from the catchment area, working on this plantation. Then imagine their dependents, and then all the other indirect jobs that Benso creates in that area. It is a wonderful model, and that's the kind of model we're looking at about crop processing zones. And so we maximize our potential in that area, with palm plantations and all that. They are depleted lands. They've cut all the timber. There's nothing there again. And so if we can secure lands like that were once forests, relocate some of the communities that were there outside the exterior with the promise that we will employ their children as workers, in the oil plantation, they'll be willing to do that. And we get another 4,000 hectares of land, employ the children of all the communities that we displace as workers in the plantation. They'll be very happy.
Obviously, that will improve the economy.
It's something that of those areas can do.
Now, you have intensified your message, assuring the public of quality education. I'm interested in this, and that free SHS program will be sustained. Today, I want us to focus on tertiary education. First, you promised 50% cut in the school fees that students will be paying from next, that is if you win the elections. What is informing this really?
There's been a dislocation of our economy caused by mismanagement of this present administration. COVID has worsened it. Let's not say COVID has created a problem with the economy. The economy was already in problem before COVID worsened it. And I'd like to ask the Ghana Revenue Authority to come clean. In 2019, they had a shortfall in domestic revenue. I mean, they did what no government has ever done. It's criminal. They had a gap because they were not able to beat their targets. They went to 2 commercial banks and borrowed against some large payers' accounts and added that money at commercial interest rates.
That's quite serious.
Yes, to make up the domestic revenue shortfall. And so you remember there was a tussle between the management and the workers. They said, oh, we've achieved our targets. Normally when they achieve their targets, we pay them a bonus. Yeah, the management was reluctant to pay them the bonus because they knew they did not achieve the target. They had gone to borrow the money to give a semblance that they had achieved the target. That is the danger with this government. You can't trust this government. It's all propaganda and, you know, politics. They want to show a clean sheet in economic management to the world and show that they are better economic managers, but they aren't. You know, things like this, I've never known, since the time I entered politics, I've never seen any administration from Rawlings, Kufuor, Mills to myself, where we have separate financial statistics that we don't know which actually to trust. The IMF released some figures recently. We're going to end this year with 75% debt to GDP. That means our whole GDP of almost 60 billion, 75% of it we owe as debts. Can you imagine that? And we're going to end the year with a deficit, budget deficit of about 15%, unprecedented. You know? And so they've shown that they are the poorest managers of the economy. This year the economy is going to grow at below 1%. And we're going to feel the strictures of an economy that hasn't grown. Because as the economy grows, businesses are able to expand. And so for the first time since 1992, the Fourth Republic, we're going to have the lowest growth. And you see, the thing about this government, they try to blame it all on COVID, but no. As late as last year, they already were not meeting their domestic revenue targets, and they were borrowing from banks to create the impression that they had met it, you know. And so all those things, you know, creates a problem, and COVID has expanded it. And so a lot of people's businesses and things have suffered. And so for those who have children in tertiary educational institutions, many of them will have a difficulty being able to meet their commitments in terms of facility user fees and all that. And so we said that as a one-off, to give some relief to the parents and the students, why don't we absorb 50% of, you know, what they will have to pay, so that will make it easier. We believe that from next year we can put in the remedial actions, especially as we're putting in the stimulus to the small and medium enterprise sector and all that, and all the other, you know, tools that we're bringing to try and stimulate the economy, the 10 billion big push and all that. It will get the economy moving again. So for the meantime, this academic year, let us relieve, you know, the students and their parents of some of the burden of the fees.
Let's stay with the tertiary education sector. I remember some few months ago, university lecturers have been fighting government over the Public Universities Bill. In fact, some of them even threatened to go to court. UTAG seemed to be divided, and government suggested that it was bent on ensuring that this bill is passed. Only yesterday, we are picking information that government says it is going to suspend the Public Universities Bill. How do you react to this latest move by government, especially when you've made reference in your manifesto to an issue about to scrap the law that bans the import of salvaged vehicles, and government announces this? Do you see it as a political gimmick or a genuine effort towards the agitation by public university lecturers?
I think the suspension of the bill is not enough. Government should withdraw it from Parliament completely, because I think government took the decision because I made it clear, and we put it in our manifesto, that if they bother and waste time and effort to pass the bill, when we come, we'll repeal it and let the universities have their different enacting legislation. And so they say they've suspended it. But what it means is, if they say they've suspended it, then it means it's for electoral purposes, because they suspended it in the event that, unlikely event that they win, they will just go ahead and brush it off and go ahead with it again.
Now let me take your take on this.
They should withdraw the bill from Parliament. If they withdraw it, then we know that they've taken it out of Parliament.
But beyond that, this is about the autonomy of the public universities. Why do you believe in that autonomous status that the universities have?
Because the point is, there's something we call academic freedom. Universities are places of learning, and they need to do so in an atmosphere that is devoid of political interference. This new bill seeks to give government control of the university councils, because the majority of the people under this bill who are going to serve on the university councils are going to be government appointees. So government can control what happens on the universities. It doesn't augur well for academic freedom. And so that's why we have said that no, let's leave the, I mean, the universities have had their different enacting legislations. They've managed to administer the universities. There's been no problem at all with the management of the universities. Learning is going on, teaching is going on. Why at this time would you want to give a uniform bill to all universities? You know, when I talked about it, they said, oh, but you did the technical universities. The technical universities bill is an omnibus bill that governs all technical universities. Fine. Those other universities were established at different times and given different enacting legislation. We needed to convert the polytechnics to technical universities. There was no time to have each of them come out with their different enacting legislations. So we came with a uniform enacting legislation in order that we can do the conversion. As the universities grow and they adopt their own specialized focus, whatever, they can bring their own bills, which they can tweak to meet the purpose of what they want to do. And so we did that for convenience, to start them off with a uniform legislation. But in future, they might change that. I mean, Tertiary Technical University is in the oil processing area. They might want to have a more specialized focus on oil industry. And so because of that, they would want on their board to have somebody from the oil industry sitting on their board. So they'll say, look, we want to have our own legislation. We want to change the nature of our university council and put so representatives on. We want to put a rig worker, put this, that, so that we're able to specialize more on what we want to do. And so they suspended it, but I think they should just withdraw it completely.
So the challenge from the former president, NDC's 2020 presidential candidate, is that if the president means business, he should withdraw the bill from Parliament. That is what will justify the real intent, if that is what they want to communicate.
If we come into office, we'll withdraw it.
Right. So I think he's been definite that when he comes into office, he will withdraw it. I'm just re-emphasizing what you have just shared with us. Now, I want us to stay on education a little while, because this free SHS conversation has been going on. You've given yourself, or you've set your own target, 1 year deadline within which everybody would have had access to go at the same time. How are you going to do it?
It's the issue about the double track is mainly a question of infrastructure. We don't have enough classrooms, we don't have enough dormitories. And we realized that from a long time ago. And so we started working to be able to start the free SHS, knowing that we'll have expanded, flows of children into secondary education. And so one of the things we started was the Secondary Education Improvement Program. It was called SAPE. It's a project we did with the World Bank. And it was supposed to expand secondary education. Part of it went into scholarships for 10,000 students, mostly girls. That is the program that was called the Pampas. Or is it, what do you
Yes, Pampas.
No, this
the pad.
The pad loan.
Sanitary pads.
Sanitary pads, because there was a part of it that was meant to provide sanitary pads.
I remember the minority then was mocking your government.
Yeah, for giving girls sanitary pads. I don't want to go into the argument again, but I think many countries are replicating it because they realize that it is one of the reasons for girls not performing well in school, because every month for a number of days Many of them skip classes because they are not able to deal with their menstrual cycle and all that, and how they protect themselves, you know. But that is past. But I just said it was called the PAD loan. In that loan, there was the sanitary pads, there was scholarships for students, there was training of teachers, especially in maths and English and the sciences, to improve the quality. And then a big chunk of it went into expansion of infrastructure. And so we built dormitories, we built classroom blocks, we built administration blocks, and other things in all the secondary schools. That was one aspect of it. Then we also decided that we had to expand the number of secondary schools, because apart from the secondary schools Nkrumah built, you know, the number of secondary schools, the next major addition to secondary education was in President Rawlings' time. He built almost 100 new secondary schools. President Kufuor built a few, I think 30-something schools also. But there was a need to expand phenomenally the number of schools. So we decided to do the biggest single addition to secondary infrastructure in the country, which was the community day schools, E-blocks. And so we embarked on building 200 of them. We gave 123 of them on contract. By the time we left office, about 47 of them had children in the schools, had cut the tape. The schools were finished, completely furnished and everything, and children had been populated in several of them. And then by the time we left office, there were another 73 that were at an advanced stage of completion. They had been roofed, doors, plastered and everything. It just needed a little tweaking to finish them. And so the intention was to expand so that we could populate the schools and prevent what eventually happened, which is the double track. So our intention is, if we come into office, for those that are almost finished, we will tackle them first and very seriously and finish them, and we'll populate them with children. That would ease the pressure on the existing secondary schools. I'll give you an example, and I've given this example before. We put a school in Bamboy, which is in my constituency, Bole Bamboy. Now Bamboy is in the middle there somewhere. Before we put that school there, the nearest secondary schools were Bole Secondary, which was 81 kilometers to the north. Then the next was Kintampo Secondary, and then southwards they had Winchi Secondary. And so all the children from Bamboy who finished JHS either had to go to Bole, Kintampo, Winchi. Some of them went as far as Damango. Others went to Tamale. Now, what we did is, when we put the secondary school in Bamboy, it meant that all the children in Bamboy and surrounding areas no longer have to go and add up to the congestion in these other schools, because they're able to access the school here. So that is the importance of these schools. I'll give you another example. The one we put in Kwabenya, the day I was commissioning the school was full, because they did an autonomous admission. When we finished, we asked them to do their own admission. And at that time, the computer placement system had posted children to different parts of the country. And the parents know the hardship with posting my child. I live in Accra. My child is posted to, let's say, let me use my secondary school, Ghana Secondary School, Tamale, or somewhere. You get my point. And the child goes and he cannot get placed in the dormitory. I have to go and rent a place for him there. So we opened the school about the same time when the computer placement thing had come. So somebody's child who was posted to Tamale or to Kokrantumi or to Swedru or somewhere, he said, oh, but there's a new secondary school in my neighborhood. So they took their children and brought them there. Mm-hmm. And that school is doing very well. We put another one in Frafraha. And so our intention is that we put additional secondary schools in high density population areas, because community day schools are better in an urban setting. With those that are in the rural areas, we'll put dormitory blocks so that people who come to the school who are not from there can have a place. And so we believe that if we tackle this seriously within the first year, we should be able to create enough capacity to be able to move the children into these schools. Each of these schools can take 1,000 or more children. And so if we even do 100 of the schools and finish them, it means that 100,000 children can find access, and that will ease the pressure on the existing secondary schools. And with that, we can cancel the double track. They can all go to school at the same time. They can all vacate at the same time. And it will create jobs, because then we can employ more teachers, you know, to man these schools and all that. It will create more employment in the educational sector.
We'll go a little further, but I want you to be brief on this, because it comes up anytime the government wants to introduce strategies to improve or maybe tackle challenges in the education sector. Will there be a national consultative forum to look at how you want to implement the policies captured and to cancel this double track system?
We have something in Akan language. They say etiko and kwejina. It means literally 2 heads are better than one. And we have stakeholders in the educational sector. When we had problems with funding education generally, it was one such forum that was held that came up with the Get Fund idea. Today, the Get Fund is a single instrument in Ghana's history that has led to the most phenomenal growth in educational infrastructure. It was not one government that just sat and decided that we want to do Get Fund. It was the parents, it was the teachers, it was the students, all the stakeholders, you know, educational workers, everybody was there. And they all agreed that, look, let's put 2.5% on value-added tax. All of us agree. And we'll use it to fund education infrastructure. Today, if you go to most of our schools and everything, most of the infrastructure you see there was funded through Get Fund. So it doesn't hurt to have a forum on free SHS, bring all of us together and say, what are the issues? What is the strategy going forward? And we all agree that, look, let's do this. We can get a new funding source from here to be able to do this, you know. And so, yes, we'll have that stakeholders conference. It can only enhance, you know, the program so that we all know in which direction we are going.
This is TVXYZ, the conversation with NDC's 2020 candidate, John Mahama, and it's powered by Wizard TV, and you can also join us on Facebook and YouTube. It's also live on Agro TV, Volta 1 TV, CTV, Power FM, an affiliate of TVXYZ, Accra FM, and Class FM. We'll be taking a short break. When we come back, I want the President to touch briefly on the primary health care after responding to issues about the primary health care and how he wants to address them, especially because if you go around deprived communities, you hear people say it's good because we can't renew our NHIS cards, and therefore if we have to get access because of this policy, that's good. But the question is, do we have the facilities? How are the professionals going to play into this policy? We're taking a short break. After that, the former president will speak to these issues and the story of the Western region.
The average human body mass should have at least 60% water for optimal performance in any physical or mental exercise. We can help you maintain it naturally. Natural mineral water. Simply natural.
Now let's now focus on health. As I told you before the break, the former president John Dramani Mahama has been speaking about primary health care, which is important at this time in our national life. The reality is that many people in the rural communities, deprived communities, especially in these times, these trying times when life is really difficult, cannot even renew their cards. How do you intend to make this more feasible?
The free primary health care is meant to help us attain the SDG 3, that is to do with health, universal health for all. Because we have about 9 years to the end of implementation of the SDGs. At the rate at which we're going with the NHIS, there's no way that we can meet that target in 9 years. Because if we look at the NHIS, we should be able to grow it at a certain rate to be able to meet that target within the time frame. Unfortunately, the NHIS has reached a bit of its limits. When it was introduced, it was given a definite time frame. It has gone far beyond the time frame that it would be viable as an insurance scheme. You know, we have these actuarial studies that look at the viability of an insurance scheme. Now, in 2016, I asked for a review of the NHIS to see what else we could do to improve the NHIS and to extend its lifespan, looking for new sources of funding and all that. There was a big review held, and we were held by international donor agencies, and so they brought in experts and everybody to review our NHIS. They did a comprehensive review of our NHIS. Our own comrade Chris Atim was one of the lead consultants helping us to do this, and they came out with their reports, you know, and I think I have a copy somewhere in my records, you know, that showed the limits to which NHIS could help us achieve universal health care, you know, for all our citizens. So in that report, they recommended that we should bring a free primary health care system to buttress the NHIS if we are to reach all our people across the country. And so the report was presented to me in September 2016, just before we went into the elections, and so of course we couldn't do anything with it. I'm sure this new government must have inherited the report, but 4 years on they haven't done anything with it. And so we revised it and put it in our manifesto that if we come into office, we would introduce the free primary health care. Now the free primary health care, we believe, you know, should cost us about 1.4 to 1.5 billion Ghana cedis a year. There are two things that will enhance access. One, the availability of the facility so that the person can access healthcare. That's why we're aggressively rolling out the CHIPS compounds and the clinics and polyclinics, because you need to have a facility to be able to take advantage of whatever. Otherwise, there's no policy. Why a lot of people are not even on the NHIS is that there's no CHIPS compound in this community. And so what does he need the NHIS for when he does not have a facility to attend? If he has to go to a health facility, he has to travel some 20 kilometers to go to a facility. So let's get CHIPS compounds in all communities within a certain radius of every community. Get polyclinics, you know, within a certain radius of every community. Build district hospitals within every district so that we know that all our people have access. Now what we'll do is we'll use a biometric system using, now we have the Ghana card, and so using the Ghana card or any proof of citizenship to be able to administer the free primary health care. We believe it should cost about $8 per person, and I mean overall we should be able to spend about between 1.4 and 1.5 billion a year. And so my suggestion is we're already using oil money to fund free SHS. Education is important. Health is equally important. And so if we take another 1.5 billion from the ABFA to fund pre-primary health care, it will be money well spent.
I think that is good news, especially when many suggested that how are you going to do it now is giving you an idea about how actually it will be done. More jobs for nurses, more jobs for doctors, lab technicians, and all those along that chain who work in the health sector. Now, Mr. President, I'll be speaking to you shortly about the reaction by people who have been mobbing you around your tour of the Western region. I want you to listen to a few of them we engaged yesterday. These were young men and women who had virtually blocked the road on your way to Mpoho yesterday through Benso, Atiku, before you wrapped up at Kansarodo last night. Let's listen to these young men, and I want you to have a feel of their passion. Then I will take your reaction on that.
ti sɛ ɛnyɛ yam sɛ ne nkɔ yɛ kɛnyɛ mɛdua mama ɛnyɛ yam sɛ mɛdua bisu ayɛ ba ɛnyɛ mɛdua ɔyɛ da yam sɛ nkuti nyɛ adwuma ɔbɛ ɛbi adwuma bi na ma yusu yɛ na obi ɛyɛ na bɛ sɛ so kasa bi aha de ɛma mama ba yɛ ti fu wa ha wɔnyɛ adwuma sia wɔnyɛ adwuma bi a yɛ wɔn ne awɔ basa na wɔn wɔ yi ti wɔnyɛ yɛ ti na ti ayɛ yɛ adwuma sia pa ayɛ sɛ yɛ da akyi onyia mama na waje duwa Mahama mu Pana so ya poduma ya ni ni emesi Mahama ko ni ma ko biela wo ya djuma no ko ma bi Mahama was no ni emesi ma ni bi Messi na ni ma ni yo babi Mahama na sam domra na mi bi na ku fa do ba wo ya fe ama mi wure ke o ma mi wure ke ene jiri so o mo kada ko so agara se si aye me bi o ene score to na bobla because of any say ene jire je the next 4 years no ba no be no e so ba ye mi e ba tro asa ba ka so e no say ene jire o sa pa do ba no so yi o je ye no o ku ye juma o ku ye so bo play as say excavated more than that ndiro ye ba say o just see go e o ma ma to aso eni tia na obi bi kan me ya mo be bi le ka wa je school ya bi no bia Kabi, David yes a credit. Tertiary go. Eruwa na yamra, echa yamra. Atunyo bada desa. E Mahama ba, ya uba twe. Ebi yo juma ebi. Akam si waka. Am say wo so wo do. Gama e obi bia, e so na ya bia. Wa ba wa ma o do ba. Ito e mo na. Abi ko do man jira ma. E mu de, e mu jam. Special for us. This is one Musa, Libya, NEC, Parliamentary, Masare, Assistant, you see from the reaction that there's so much expectation, high expectation, anger, and some comfort when they see you because they have that confidence in you. Are you not overwhelmed?
You see, life has deteriorated for most of our people, and I keep talking about this danger. Our youth are seeing fewer opportunities available for them, and so they're getting very frustrated. I hope President Akufo-Addo is going to these rural areas and looking into the eyes of the young people and seeing the frustration that they feel about finishing school, coming and sitting at home, having to depend on their parents for food and everything, or to go and fend for themselves somehow, no sustainable jobs. It's a ticking time bomb. You can see what was happening in Nigeria recently. It is a frustration of our young people that things are not moving fast enough, and so this recent issues with the economy, mismanagement and things, is going to constrict our ability to create jobs further. And that's why we must come out with a clear plan. We have a comparative advantage in this country when it comes to agriculture and agri-processing. When it comes to mining, these are sectors that we've had for years. It's just that we're not taking our time to put in the right, processes so that we're able to take advantage of it. We've been growing cocoa for many years. Coffee production in some parts of the central region and other eastern region and others has a potential to be able to be exploited. I mean, everybody knows Ethiopian coffee in this world. People know Colombian coffee. I mean, we can have a Ghanaian coffee where our farmers produce the coffee, we process it here, and we send it out to the world. So there's a lot of potential in mining. We have manganese, we have iron ore, and all that. You see, the thing is that we sit and wait and expect that foreign investors and others will come and do it for us. But gradually, we're building the capacity to be able to do it ourselves if we put in the right investment. We don't need Chinese to come and do small-scale mining for us. Our people have adopted the technology. And all we need to do is to guide them so that they do it properly and safely, so that we don't lose lives, and so that we're able to reclaim the land after it's been mined. If you go to US and other places, they're doing small-scale mining. I saw a video of a small-scale mine next to a stream. The stream was as clear and as beautiful as possible because they do what they call a leach pond.
So the mining companies, they call it tailings dam.
Or something.
Yeah.
And then what they do is, as they mine, they wash the wastewater in there. And then after they finish, there's a way of treating the water and then discharging it. And then after that, you fill up the whole place, you level it, and then you plant trees on it. And you come back after 5, 6, 7 years, and you don't think that any mining took place there. We can also do it here in Ghana.
Now, I want us to stay a little while on this particular stretch because we are wrapping up this conversation, and we cannot do it without how people have received you in the Western region. You'll be looking at one of the roads we applied yesterday. This is from Benso through Atioku before we came to Dabuase. And if you look at the road, it looks like it was virtually impassable, and that's the road. And so one of the Wizard TV cameramen had to capture it as we struggled to find our way across that stretch. Now, you have been in government for 4 years. Is it that you have not been fixing roads? Why do we have this still happening? No, or it was supposed to be under the Cocoa Road?
It was one of the projects we were doing under the Cocoa Roads. And if I can remember the contract, I don't remember who the contract was. Just More was the one working on that road.
But I understand yesterday we found that it's the same person who's back on the road.
When this government came, they stopped it and stopped him from working. Now they've come with some agreement with Just More and asked him to part fund the road. So here he's part funding at 30% and government is paying 70%. And so work is now ongoing on the road. You know, but we did the other one, the one from Dabuase. You remember after we left Atieku, we continued on the road and then it hits the road that we did from Dabuase to Atieku.
That's
about 6 kilometers. Just 6 kilometers more to get to Atieku.
Just 6 kilometers?
Yeah.
That project would have been completed.
That beautiful road we came down to Dabuase. Yeah, it was also done in our period. And so I know most of these roads. I've traveled the length and breadth of this country, and we got a handle on them with the Cocoa Roads project. If it had run smoothly, it was a 5-year program. It was the Cocoa Roads Rehabilitation Project. It was a 5-year program, and we're pumping in initially $150 million a year.
Dollars or cedis?
$150 million a year. And our intention was to up it to $200 million over the next 3 years. So it was a 5-year program, 150 million, and then 200 million, 200 million, 200 million. And I'm sure that by the time we would have finished that program, most of these roads would have been done.
But we've gone through the Amenfi, Wasa areas, all of them Central Region to Konofin. When you come back, what is your strategy? Because the chiefs are highly expectant.
You see, what happened was the new management came, and it was like they panicked. Oh, but you've awarded this quantum of contracts. But there was an assured financing, you understand? And so once you give the contractor the contract, he will finish it in 24 months, you understand? And so even if the contract is, let's say, 50 million Ghana cedis, you're not required to pay him 50 million Ghana cedis immediately. As he works, he brings his certificate for 2 million Ghana cedis, for 1 million Ghana cedis, for 1.5 million Ghana cedis. So you keep paying him as he continues to work, you understand? But when they saw the portfolio of roads, they said we had awarded too many of the roads, and so they were going to investigate. They suspended all of them. Now, the problem they've created is, if you have to restart the roads, it's going to cost you more money. Some of those roads are being re-awarded at almost 50% higher value than they would have done if they had continued and finished them. But, I mean, we will continue the Cocoa Roads Rehabilitation Program because it's an important program. It will help to open up the cocoa grain areas and be able to bring the goods out. Now, what they are doing is they are working only on the highway portion of it. We had an urban roads component, we had a feeder roads component, and we had the highway component. Under the feeder roads component, we routinely maintain some of the roads, even though they were not bituminized. We would send a machine there to grade the road so that it's made passable, you know, for them to be able to use the road. But unfortunately, a lot of those road projects have been abandoned because elections are coming, they have restarted some of them somehow, you know, but it's really, I don't know how they're going to be able to sustain it.
It's good to hear that the assurances, when you come, even if there are fresh projects started by the current administration, you will continue them. Now, I want us to wrap up on security. You have...
Before we do that, what we're going to do is, you know, we have the big push coming. There's a big roads component in the big push. The dualization of Accra Kumasi, Accra Cape Coast, Accra Flower are all on the big push. But there's also a component for continuing some strategic roads in the country. And so we use a combination of cocoa funding and then also money from the big push project, from the big push, to be able to get a handle on many of these roads.
Yes, I was asking us to wrap up on security.
Yeah.
You've guaranteed the police and other security agencies of Cap 30. And the feedback has been positive from what we are monitoring. But there are rumors that you will reduce the 30-year, that's the understanding, for soldiers back to 25 years. Have you heard these rumors, and how do you respond to it?
I haven't heard these rumors, and we don't have anything in our manifesto that says we'll roll it back. You know, when they decided to extend it, we had our reservations, but I mean, unless the soldiers say they don't want it, once they extended it and they've taken it, that's fine. In future, if the soldiers come and say no, they don't want it, that's something different. Our recruitment is between 18 years and 25. So let's take the 25, which is the upper ceiling for being recruited into the army. Now, you serve 25 years, and so they would retire at about 50. And then they go on their pension and they receive their gratuity. Now, what it does is that at 50 years, it allows you to make a career shift and be able to get a job, you understand, before you reach the age of retirement. And so it was very convenient that they leave at 50. They are able to move into civil life, settle in civil life. If it's some business they want to run, they start running it. If he wants to become a security man with some establishment, he goes and begins to work in that establishment for 10 years before you hit 60, and then you continue until you retire. So it was very convenient, and it allowed us to have a strong, viral, you know, vibrant armed forces. This government, because it wanted to win elections, said it will increase their service to 30 years, and they've done it. And so it means that they'll come out at 55. Now at 55, you are less employable because you have only 5 years to retirement, and so your ability to get a job in the civil space is limited, you know. And so you might come out at 55, you are not able to secure a job, you understand, you're not able to make that smooth transition into civil life. But they implemented it, and I mean, it's been implemented. We have no intention of cancelling it unless the soldiers say they want to go back to 25. I mean, they've made it 30, and so we can live. I think
that satisfies because we are media personnel, and we eavesdrop a lot, and we feed on anything that is cooking.
Yeah.
And it's good that you have set the records straight.
So we have no intention.
Okay. Now, beyond what plans you have for, let's say, the security agencies, the military, and the police specifically,
I think that one of the things we did, which was very successful with all the services, was we retooled them. And so the army, the police, the prison service, fire service, if you remember, we brought the largest number of fire engines into this country to service the fire service. We provided the police with the biggest input in terms of mobility, vehicles. There was a point when I handed over to them more than 1,000 vehicles. Every district, you know, had a vehicle. You know, most of the police stations had vehicles. You know, we also provided them with arms. We provided them with bulletproof vests. I mean, the things that they need to do their work. Since then, there's been a deterioration. They complain that they don't have, you know, weapons, they don't have bulletproof vests, and it's affecting their fight against crime, you know, against armed robbery and all of those things. And so that is one of the things that we need to look at. Aside from that, their morale is low because this government has introduced some of these their political forces into the national security. The national security is supposed to be a coordinating body. It's not a body that, you know, implements security. is supposed to coordinate. If there must be an arrest or there must be something, the national security, you know, calls one of the security agencies to effect whatever arrest or whatever must be done. And so you don't normally see national security carrying weapons around the place. But it looks like under this government that has changed. There are all kinds of hoodlums who have been injected into national security, into the police SWAT, and they go around dressed like they are going into combat, you know, and there are cases where people have become casualties to some of these people. They don't respect the regular forces. During the registration exercise, I saw a video, you know, where there was this guy in plain clothes holding a pistol, Asawase, and threatening a police officer in uniform. And the sad thing was that the other security agencies, the soldiers, were begging him. And so I wondered, who is this person? You know, even if he's a national security officer in plain clothes, I mean, how can he threaten a uniformed officer? And instead of arresting him immediately and going to lock him up, they were begging him, you know. So it's affected morale in our security services. You know, they are not able to show the normal, you know, skill that they have in crime combating and everything. And we need to do something about raising their morale.
It's good to hear there's been an incident involving some of the same so-called national security operatives who stopped a police vehicle in Accra and released suspects who have been picked up at a registration center. I
saw that video.
Okay, now let's move on.
The police had arrested one of their people and they stopped it, and I mean, very impudently. I mean, it was one of the lowest days I saw of our Ghana police service. They just extracted the guy and warned the police officers and all that. All that weakens morale. We saw the police pickup with MPP party Aparachiki, you know,
that is
with their flags.
West Wagon.
No, there's a video with the Ghana police pickup.
Okay, that was when there was a visit to the Ashanti region by the...
Or somewhere.
Yes.
And it picked the car number, everything. You know, when things like this happen, they just say, oh, we're investigating. I want to ask the IGP, how long does it take to investigate this? Who was the officer driving? How come the party people went into the pickup? And he drove without asking them to get off. You understand? And they think that once they say, oh, we're investigating, then we'll forget about it. And the media, whose duty it is to follow this up, are also very accomplices. They forget about it and they go along. I'm asking the IGP today, that investigation you said you were investigating with party political people in party uniform in a Ghana police service vehicle, what have you done about it? These are the things that lower morale, politicize our institutions, bastardize our institutions, and they're not able to perform to full capacity.
Let's look at the sub-region. Cote d'Ivoire is boiling, and there are similar issues in Mali. I know about Guinea and some other parts of the sub-region. All these have to do with insecurity. Nigeria, just some few days ago, we heard of the shooting incident. These are related to politics, democracy, and governance generally. How do you feel about them with these emerging in the sub-region?
Our sub-region has been peaceful for some time. You know, the worst period we had was when we had the civil conflict in Liberia, Sierra Leone. It affected Guinea in a way. Then we had a problem in Guinea-Bissau, you know, and all that. That was a period when we had extreme turbulence in our sub-region. Since then, things settled down, and we've had a few skirmishes. Burkina Faso, when President Blaise Compaoré wanted to go for a third term, you know the uprising that took place. At the time I was ECOWAS chairman, and so I had to deal with that particular issue. Since then things have been calm. Recently, I mean, this boil over is beginning to take place. In Mali, we know what happened. So far stable. They have a transitional government in place, and we see how they progress towards full democracy. Nigeria is a different issue. Nigeria has been a tinderbox of ethnic tensions. Indeed, Nigeria is several nations in one. You know, somehow, because of the colonial experience, it's several nations in one. But it has a big population of young people who are very creative, very purpose-driven, very high-achieving, you know, and they are fully motivated to make it in life, you understand? And so the fact that there's this growing youth who have a different orientation from the older generation and who are looking for opportunities and they cannot find those opportunities is what is reflecting in this current rebellion. The brutality of the Special Anti-Armed Robbery Squad, you know, is an issue that has existed. SARS has been there. It's part of the police force that is like the high-handed end of the police force, and a lot of brutality is meted out at people. The younger generation is no longer prepared to take that. And so that became the focal point for rallying NSAS. But then it's now begun to encompass some wider issues, including corruption, including opportunities, including unemployment and all that kind of thing. So it's becoming like a movement. We shouldn't sit here and think in Ghana that it cannot happen here in Ghana. Our young people too are purpose-driven. They are children. We know them. We know what their aspirations are. They think differently from us. And the point is, for the older generation that don't understand what the aspiration of these young people are, you think you just throw free SHS and so that's the end of it. It's not about only free SHS. It's about what opportunities exist for them after they leave secondary school. They don't want to come and sit in their parents' houses and do nothing. When that happens, they get frustrated. And when they get frustrated, these are some of the excesses that happen. Of course, in Ghana, we don't have a portion of the police service that is equivalent to the SARS, but we have our own national security issues. We have that SWAT force who come with masks and things, and they have jackknives and all those kinds of things all over them. You understand? Depending on how that plays out, it could end up in anything. So we should not take things for granted. Cote d'Ivoire is a third term issue. I mean, people are opposed to the third term. And I can empathize with President Ouattara. I mean, he had a candidate for his party, you know, who was his prime minister. And just when they had filed the nominations, gotten ready, then the man drops dead, you know. But I believe that President Ouattara has a bunch of young, you know, brilliant people. There's the former Interior Minister, Bakayoko. Bakayoko is a very sharp person, and I know several of the people in his administration who I believe could quickly have stepped into Koulibaly's shoes. But, you know, you have geopolitics. You have the French, and what is the French opinion, and do they need him to do one more term to stabilize things before, you know, but everything has its, you know, merits and demerits, and of course young people are protesting, and it's also somewhere we must continue to closely monitor. Yeah.
We'll be wrapping up this conversation, I'm sure, in the next 3-4 minutes. We'll be taking the President's message as we do always. But before we take your message, I want to take this briefly. We understand that some semblance of international observers want to come in or are already arriving to monitor our processes towards the December 7 elections. Is that satisfying your expectations?
Yes, I've called several times for international observers to come. Our president has said there's no need for international observers. Indeed, there's a need for international observers more now than ever before, because I have some premonitions that are not very good, that we could have some chaotic scenes during the elections. One, because of the tendency of this current administration to use violence when it comes to elections, as we saw in Arasu West Wagon. And then two, because of some of the incompetencies of the Electoral Commission, we're likely to have some chaos and disorder, because if people go, they can't find their names. If BVRs are rejecting people and all that, it will create a recipe for some confusion. And so we need the international community to join our domestic observers to be able to supervise the project, the process properly. Of course, we, the political parties, will do our own supervision, but because we're stakeholders, we're going to be looking at it from the prejudices of our own interests. And so we need neutral observers. I saw that there was an appeal for funding from the domestic observers. They said they don't have enough funds to be able to do it. I want to appeal to the international community and well-meaning groups, you know, to be able to finance our domestic observers too. Because international observers are good, but Codeo and others also do a very good job. And so if we can get some funding for them, it will be good. But I believe that we should, you know, have observers everywhere.
This is an interesting area, and even though I've given you an indication that we are wrapping up this interview, I just want you to touch on this. Your opponent, President Nana Akufo-Addo, has always created the impression that Ghana has succeeded under his regime. The economy is doing well. You have thrown that challenge to him that you want to compare records. He's borrowed so much, he should show what he has done for it. The IMF is also giving some indication about concerns about the rate of at which we are borrowing and what looks ahead for Ghana. What is your comment on IMF's recent concern about Ghana?
The IMF has been a bit hypocritical in all this because the signals have been there. You know, it's not today that we raise the issue of the finance minister cooking the books. He's been cooking the books over the last 4 years. What he does is he leaves out some big ticket budget items and puts them as footnotes so that he can get a better, you know, fiscal report to give to the international community. He's used it to fool the IMF. He's used it to fool Moody's, Fitch, and all the rating agencies. He's used it to fool the Economist Intelligence Unit, all of them, by giving a rosy picture that they are better economic managers. You know, but with the kinds of resources we left him, I'm surprised and shocked at his very abysmal performance. We managed this economy with one oil field, the Jubilee field, if you remember. At the time we were leaving office, we had completed 2 more oil fields. That virtually tripled revenues from oil. I mean, with that kind of extra revenue, one, I mean, could just imagine what they could have done, you know, in terms of transforming this economy. But they've not been able to. I mean, you can see everywhere. There's nothing to show for it. Their only claim to fame is free SHS, you know, and so free SHS is being funded from the oil revenues. But aside from that, you know, there's nothing to show for it. And the signs were there that this economy was being mismanaged, first by overborrowing. Over 4 years, he's gone onto the capital market and raised $9 billion. And $9 billion is only going into consumption. You don't see what it's being used for. Normally, if you go on the market and you raise money, you use a bit of it to retire your high interest local debt. But some part of it you must use for other important projects that are tangible and that transform the economy. But that has not happened. Today, the single largest threat to the economy is the almost $1.5 billion that he owes independent power producers. We came up with the ESLA, and the way we structured the ESLA, over 5 to 6 years, we would have finished paying off that debt. Today, that debt has ballooned to $1.5 billion. The independent power producers are threatening to shut down this country's power supply if the finance minister doesn't pay him. He's gone begging them. When they threaten, he'll find a little money and go and give to them and ask them to be patient. He's just waiting to hand over a broken economy to the next administration. The economy is already broken. COVID didn't break it. The thing is, if you have an economy, it must have sufficient buffers. And so if you say this was the best economy in Africa and he was the best finance minister and the economy was resilient, why is it that just one pandemic and your economy is already in ICU? Cote d'Ivoire is not in ICU. Rwanda is not in ICU. All the other countries are managing somehow, but your economy is comatose. We're almost going to grow. We're not going to grow. I mean, it's estimated we'll grow below 1%. You know, as alone, other countries are growing at 3%, 4%. Of course, their growth forecasts have come down, but we have come down to 0. We borrowed almost 11 billion because of COVID. We don't know how you've administered it. You are giving the stimulus package to your party chairman and all that. You've taken their Momo numbers and you are sending it through them. You are using NBSSI to try and give monies to people to politically influence them, you know, for elections. I mean, this government has been a disaster, seriously. And I'm sure the day will come when Ghanaians will realize it. They use propaganda to hoodwink the public that they've done so well, we're the best economic managers. Businesses are collapsing. Just speak to the business community. People are struggling, you know, not because of COVID, even before COVID. I spoke to some businessmen who are not NDC. They have always voted for NPP. And when this government came into office, they said their businesses are struggling. I mean, the amount of profit they used to make under NDC has suddenly collapsed. They are struggling to pay their workers, and they're just trying to keep their businesses afloat because they hope that there will be a change and that better times will come in the future.
Also, former President John Mahama is our guest this morning for the usual conversation before he wraps up his tour of any region he visits. We shall be taking his message to Ghanaians as we do always after this break.
Every human body mass should have at least 60% water for optimal performance in any physical or mental exercise. We can help you maintain it naturally. Natural mineral water. Simply natural.
I think most of the world travel outside. We're able to say that America is different from Ghana simply because of the infrastructure we see. The good roads, the good hospitals, the good schools and all that. And so if an amount of 10 billion is going to be pushed into an infrastructure to elevate it to a point where we're going to have that solace like those in America and all that, then I think it's a very good thing. So if we're going to get that, I know it's going to create jobs, it's going to open up the economy and all that. So it's a very good thing, and I feel very excited about that.
Kwan ya ye wosu kotobabi spinters ase na rough road obi aso nim say rough road yentimi ntina nche ye business belli si ba na wabeka kwan ye kota menim na NDC ye kwan we nti oye wie no manya akwanya a meditable abesi ho ameye mo ba mani.
Many December, as I say, Nippon buy, so many video you need that. And I'm Nippon vision, of course, the one money is a sign of GMA Casa, or money is a sign of the Cosmo, or very ready to say, Baba. Now, San Juma is some of the here, say, you see, we could have a case of the China and then in Juma you want to call and say, we will be playing for Juma. And then you never wash a screen to me, a billion of young Juma. And can say Dumano, and your mother answer, I can trump in a young woman. I was doing so one of the big Duma of the pretty job. And go at your mind, and when you say, to me, I can't say so. I am because you're last year, you do put your battery in a better Santa for to about their money.
Since program any of the number, never I shouldn't know what I Yadu Jirebe. I'm a Galifia, Magaramete, you school, take a bear, a two bear, or Tava, out and a co. Elbow for education, over education on Muraha, Bama Greta, you know. They do for education, school, Egro school home, you. Then Poemo Coso Doha, I don't know better, no, Egro for education, my witness them. Every for your I'm going to make an automobile family. Don't believe it. I performance say entrepreneurs all buying in a way like all my apprentices. They actually know me. Oh, good. But anytime mission at the permanent. Easy. And no this kind of treatments will be anytime pay. This kind of treatment, mission.
It's a balance or in distance now. I think that the youth will go in to learn.
Before the previous administration exited office, on this particular campus, the Regional Maritime University, a vocational center was built, was to help students come up with their techniques when it comes to welding and all that. Because I quite remember the former president came to the school and then spoke about the fact that on the rig one time they needed welders to work there, and then it was very alarming that they didn't really have professional welders in Ghana. So based on that fact, that facility was set up. But since the government left office, nothing much had come out of it. So I think with the job creation, giving students the opportunity to have free vocational education after school, they'll be able to come out and then set up some jobs for themselves.
When a criminal or an armed robber breaks into your home, he does not hail a Yezu or Kukudu. At that point in time, that criminal or that armed robber is thinking about his stomach. So I believe that a visionary leader like this, that is bringing policies that is actually going to give some livelihood to the youth, I think will go a long way to grant us some safety within the community.
So our conversation with His Excellency John Dramani Mahama is about to end, and as we do, we take his message to Ghanaians. Your Excellency, there are several cameras here. I want you to look into this camera. What do you have to tell Ghanaians today?
Okay. Thank you, my brothers and sisters. I'm John Dramani Mahama, presidential candidate of the National Democratic Congress, better known as the NDC. I come before you to ask for your vote. Together, we can build a nation that creates opportunities for all of us, not just a privileged few. That will improve our living standards and reduce the hardship that has been brought on us by this government. Just like you, I believe everybody, all of us, should have access to health care. And this is why the NDC will be rolling out a free primary health care plan for all. Just like you, I believe mothers are sacred and they deserve quality time with their newborn babies. And this is why we're increasing the maternity leave for mothers to 4 months. Just like you, I believe women are equal to men and their voice should always be heard. And this is why I chose Nana Jinopoko Ajiman as my running mate. Just like you, I believe young people are right to expect to live in a modern, vibrant Ghana. And this is why we'll transform this country into a knowledge-based economy, driving our development through a digitalized platform that provides millions of opportunities for our young people to harness their talents, skills, and their full potential. Just like you, I want to leave a legacy, and this is why I'm running for president. I'll make you proud to be a Ghanaian. I'll make you proud of who you are, make you hope for what we can become, a truly developed nation. Be proud of what we can become as a country, and join me in the quest to lead our country there by voting for me, John Mahama. I'm number 2 on the ballot. On December 7th, 2020, vote for the NDC. Let us make it a collective duty to bring about the change that we all desire in ourselves, in our youth, our community, and our country at large. In John Dramani Mahama, you have a president that you can trust. A president with a proven track record of development, a president that knows and has the experience of managing difficult situations. And I have a great vision for our country. Together, we can leave a legacy that we are proud of. The time is now. Vote John Mahama for jobs and prosperity for all. Thank you.
When you did the victory sign, you know why I was smiling as I was watching you? I told myself, I put myself in your shoes. Less than 42 or 40 days to the exam. The exam is December 7th. I can imagine how you feel. I don't want any response. Just leave it there. I don't want any response.
No, thank you, Eric.
So that's how we wrap up today's interview with His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, NDC's 2020 candidate. We are so grateful to Power FM, Class FM, Accra FM, Agro TV, TV Africa. We have TV XYZ. Ways of TV has been powering all this. My name is Erica Hianyo, and His Excellency again, we are so grateful. Thanks to everybody, wherever you are. If I missed your name because I can't remember, just say thanks, and we are sorry we couldn't pick messages today. Later in the day.
You've been gone, it's an empty home. Come on back where you really belong. You are always welcome home, welcome home. You've been kept down from much too